Hey everybody, it's Sam here from Lean Greens. This afternoon, as part of the Upgrade Your Nutrition Challenge, I'm making I'm doing Upgrade Your Sweet Treats, which has Tim making very funny faces behind the camera because I'm using peanut butter, which he, let's not say he's allergic to, but it makes him throw up. So in here, I'm not going to ask him to get too close with the camera, I've got some melted dark chocolate, a big tablespoon of peanut butter, and a little bit of coconut oil. So this is for a wee treat that I make up now and again. I make a few up, only takes 5 minutes, stick them in the freezer, and then I've got like a little chocolatey pebble of goodness for when I need chocolate. So in here, all I am popping is some mixed nuts. So I just chopped up some pecan nuts, some walnuts, some Brazil nuts, and there's also some ground almonds that I had left over there. So I'm just gonna pop all that into there. And give it a good stir about. Get it all nice and covered in the chocolate. You're kind of making, it's kind of like Reese's Pieces, but much better. So this, because we haven't like carefully tempered the chocolate, it might not set perfectly, it might not be super glossy, but it's going to taste delicious. And I like to keep mine in the freezer. So what I do is I pop them into these little thingies. I'm not going to fill the whole thing up. You really don't need very much of this in one chocolate hit. I'm just sort of filling up the base of these muffin cases. And then, yeah, they tend to melt in your fingers quite quickly once you get them out. So, but you're only going to have one, and you're probably going to want to enjoy it fairly quickly anyway. So I've probably got enough to make up another one, and I'll do that in a minute. So I'm going to, basically those are now going to just go in the freezer like that. When they've set, I'll probably decant them into a little plastic bag just so they take up some less room. And when you want one, you just take it out of the freezer, give it a couple of moments, and it's ready to go. So I've got another sweet treat over here for you. So in this bowl here, we've got a tablespoon of Greek yogurt, 2 tablespoons of oat milk, and 1 egg. And I'm just going to mix that up a wee bit. And then into there, I'm going to add a tablespoon of ground almonds, a tablespoon of cocoa powder, and half a teaspoon of baking powder. So pop all that in there. I'm going to give it a wee stir. It's the cocoa powder that's actually the hardest thing to mix in because it just sort of flies about. I'm also doing some with cocoa powder in a white t-shirt, which is generally not a good idea because it's just tends to get covered in the stuff. So get that all mixed up. And then this is basically, it's a mug cake, but I'm making it in a bowl because if you ever tried to make a mug cake in a mug, it just gets really messy. So that is going to go in the microwave for 2 minutes. And if you can hear me over this, so this is like a clean cake, and clean cakes are all over Instagram as being, you know, there's nothing bad in this, there's no flour in there, there's no refined sugar. Oh, I forgot to put the sugar in it. Should have a teaspoon of maple syrup in it, we'll put that in a moment. But there's not loads of sugar in it, and we're going to add some fruit and some dark chocolate in a moment. Personally, I think cake should be dirty. I think if you're going to have cake, go out, go to a cafe, sit with your friend, have a cup of coffee, have a really nice piece of proper cake full of calories and sugar and cream and eggs and flour and all the bad stuff that we're not supposed to have, and enjoy it. But that's me. If you are into clean cakes, and every now and again, this is probably, you know, most of these ingredients you're probably going to have in your cupboard. So you can, if you want something sweet, you can whip something up. Still got a minute to go. We'll just, actually I'm going to give it a stir now and add in my maple syrup. Which I forgot, so you'll see it's starting to set. You can add, you could use honey instead. I'm just using maple syrup because I prefer the flavour, and you can see how it's starting to go kind of cakey. So I'll give that a minute. thinking you could probably add our vanilla trim protein powder to this as well. I think that would probably work quite well. That does add certain sweetness as well, so probably half a scoop of that if you were going to add that in. I'm wondering if you could add protein powders to the chocolate nutty things as well. You probably could, you probably don't need to because it is basically just protein. You've basically just got chopped nuts and melted chocolate in there. Right, I'm gonna try not to burn my fingers, and now I'm gonna add in the raspberries and just a few dark chocolate chips. Oh look, see, you can see the cakiness forming. Now this is one of those desserts that is definitely better undercooked, so I'm only going to give that about another 30 seconds, so we'll have had 2 minutes total. You can change the quantities. If we start with 1 egg, and then, you know, if you use a dessert spoon or a tablespoon, it doesn't really matter, just as long as you keep the quantity sort of even. Use the same spoon for everything.
So a reminder, what's in there again?
2 tablespoons of oat milk, 1 tablespoon of natural yogurt, and 1 egg, 1 teaspoon of a sweetener, and then there's a tablespoon of ground almonds, a tablespoon of cocoa powder, 1/4 teaspoon of baking powder, some raspberries, and some chocolate chips.
There you go.
It's like being on, what was that game?
Generation Game.
Generation Game, when things used to go flying past and you had to remember them. I was never very good at that. There we go. So there is our chocolatey treat in a bowl full of goodness. You can see those raspberries have started to fall apart and go through, which really looks kind of lovely. And I'm going to have that now with a cup of tea. And Tim's going to try and not smell the peanut butter.